It's won the division. The goal is the World Series, but step by step, we'll get there.
Their worst stretch of the season unfortunately came in the postseason. Poor pitching and an offense that went cold. The O's were outscored 21-11 by Texas in the ALDS.
All right, getting a look at our weekend forecast in detail on Friday. That's actually the day to probably take off. If you're going to be making any getaways here, it looks A-OK, sunshine and 70s. Rain develops on Saturday. Could be kind of a washout here, maybe even into Sunday, especially during the morning. There could be some showers and highs only near 60. By then, if you're going to be doing some leaf peeping this weekend, hey, look at this. Lots of color beginning to pop, especially north and west of Baltimore. We've got some moderate color for portions of Carroll County. Really going to take until later in the month and early November to get our peak around here. But again, the best times getting away Friday, 72, and then later on Sunday, maybe some dry time, but highs only around 60. A washout possible on Saturday.
Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, Baltimore Police Commissioner Richard Worley shares his plan to reduce crime. The 5 ways he says he can bring those numbers down. And Fox 45 News continues to follow the breaking news out of BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport. What we're learning about a man arrested at the terminal.
Morgan State University looking to add big new security measures following last week's mass shooting, the backlash over a proposed campus wall and fencing. And Baltimore Police Commissioner Richard Worley lays out his vision for a safer city, how he plans to reduce crime, and his top goals. And later, Fox 45 is continuing to follow the war in Israel, the latest action from the Israeli Prime Minister as a top U.S. official heads to that country.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
And we are following multiple stories in a city in crisis tonight. Coming up later, the new Baltimore Police Commissioner sharing his vision for BPD and his plans to crack down on crime. Meantime, Fox 45 News getting new insight into safety plans at Morgan State University after the mass shooting. We are looking into the president's plan to build a wall with fencing around campus. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you for staying with us. We begin tonight with Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor. She brings us the latest from Morgan State University and the opinions on both sides of the proposed wall and fencing.
That's right. Keep in mind, this is a massive campus. Take a look. It stretches more than 185 acres in the heart of East Baltimore. So as you can imagine, it would take a massive wall to wrap around the entire school and its 9,000 students. It's a costly and time-consuming solution that some students say wouldn't make them feel any safer.
With Morgan State students still reeling from a homecoming week turned tragic.
You're not going to see more people outside as late, like now.
I kind of just stay in my room or stay mostly indoors.
They don't feel like, safe like they used to.
The wide open concept on their public campus, welcoming the community to utilize the library and other shared resources, could soon be cut off and students closed in.
Unfortunately, going forward, Morgan State University will have to look at closing even more significantly ingress and egress opportunities to the campus.
During a private town hall, University President Dr. David Wilson suggesting a number of new safety measures following a mass shooting outside the Thurgood Marshall dorms, leaving 5 injured, 4 of them students. Among the potential precautions, rigorous identification requirements, increased police presence and security checkpoints, and even enclosing campus.
We're going to be looking at several covert and subvertive measures to determine who may be a visitor, who may be a threat, as well as moving our Morgan Wall completely around the campus.
Wilson, alongside campus police, proposing a barrier be built around the school's 185-acre campus, a dividing wall.
Like as a student, knowing that there's that extra barrier for like somebody to have to get through, it's settling, a little bit.
I don't feel like I'm safer because of that.
That's now dividing students.
The wall is just kind of a impractical overreaction.
Law enforcement expert and former FBI agent Tyrone Powers weighing in.
And it doesn't make any logical sense, and it would not make anyone at Morgan, whether it's faculty members, students, administrators, or visitors, more secure.
Powers calling the school's intention sincere, but the execution flawed.
The solutions, the security measures have to be well thought out, they have to be practical, and they have to take into consideration this is still a college or a university where students should be going to school, not locked in and locked out.
Now, I asked the university's president for a response to those concerns from students and law enforcement, but as of News Time tonight, have not heard back. Meanwhile, the search for suspects behind the mass shooting continues. Police have increased the reward to $9,000 for anyone with any information leading to an arrest. If you'd like to remain anonymous, you can always call Crime Stoppers. Reporting from Morgan State University, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News is following breaking news right now tonight. A 7th grader in Baltimore has been found with a loaded handgun. Authorities say the suspect is 15 years old. It happened earlier today at Joseph C. Briscoe Academy in East Baltimore. Now, the administration on North Avenue tells Fox 45 News that student was involved in an altercation with a staff member during the day. The student apparently left the school saying he'd return with a gun. Police say the student did return with a loaded weapon and was arrested. But school officials say he was stopped outside of the school and never made it inside the building with the weapon. Right now, there's no word on any consequence that child is facing. Fox 45's Keith Daniels is following this breaking story. He'll bring us a full report coming up tonight on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock. Also, Fox 45 News continues to follow that breaking news out of BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport, which has now been given the all clear. A source with Maryland State Police confirmed apparently a man drove up to the terminal and told police he had explosives inside his car. He is now in custody. On the right side of your screen, you can see what appears to be that man being arrested. As a result, police shut down all roads heading in and out of the airport for a period of time. But again, the all clear has been given. Those roads have been opened, albeit things are a little slow right now, as you can imagine, with everything at a dead stop. Well, the FBI and ATF have joined the investigation, and Fox 45 News will continue to follow this story and, of course, bring you any updates on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock. Mary?
I thank you. Well, last week's shooting at Morgan State, just one of the examples of the ongoing issues facing Commissioner Richard Worley and the police department. But now he's sharing his vision for the future of Baltimore. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has the story.
The last several months have been tough, to say the least.
Baltimore Police Commissioner Rich Worley starting off his message to the people of Baltimore with an obvious truth. In just the past 3 months, the city has experienced a deadly mass shooting during its annual Brooklyn Day. Fear and questions surrounding the manhunt and handling of the search for accused murderer and rapist Jason Billingsley, and most recently the mass shooting on Morgan State University's campus.
For him, this is a difficult time, but it's a time that he could anticipate it and expect it. What he may not be used to is having to give explanations to the public.
This video, less of an explanation and more of a promise.
I'm committed to improving the quality of life in Baltimore by working with the community to decrease crime, reduce the murder rate, remove illegal guns and drugs from our streets, and continue to make arrests that ensure criminals stay in jail.
The commissioner vowing to improve community policing, reduce violent crime, increase BPD staffing, implement and achieve consent decree compliance, and improve BPD morale.
BPD officers will be increasing their time on foot patrol, conducting business checks, and getting to know the communities they serve. We will create, build, and improve our relationships with you through our community policing plan.
But how will the commissioner execute this vision with a department that remains hundreds of officers short and in a city that sees shootings and other crimes like auto thefts daily? Leaders have called BPD's officer shortage a nationwide issue and says the solution involves national help. Yet this reality stands, and experts have long said it's what will likely stand in the way of Baltimore police ultimately achieving compliance within the consent decree. Law enforcement expert Jason Johnson calling the staffing crisis Worley's biggest challenge.
That's the biggest challenge the new commissioner is going to be facing, in my opinion, is how to bounce back, how to retain senior officers, and how to attract high-quality young people.
Now, the commissioner went on to talk about public trust and accountability. Experts say the handling of these recent big cases and how those investigations unfold are very important. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, tonight, the Carroll County State's Attorney is joining other top prosecutors across the state sounding the alarm about the juvenile crime crisis and laws on the books they say need to change. Carroll County State's Attorney Haven Shoemaker says while the county isn't seeing a rise in juvenile crime, they are seeing younger and younger offenders who he says know that the crimes that they can get away with thanks to the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, which limits those 13 and under to charges for crimes of violence and says a juvenile under 10 cannot be charged.
Not only do they know, I suspect they're involved in many instances with criminal enterprises. And the adults who are running those operations know that our laws are so lax that these folks can't be touched. And so they're using them as mules or whatever to engage in criminal activity.
Shoemaker says lawmakers should have held a special session and is hopeful there will be an effort to roll back some of the measures come January. Now, Fox 45 News has heard from more than a dozen state's attorneys across Maryland who represent more than 5 million people. That is roughly 87% of the state's population. Those prosecutors say their hands are tied. Prosecutors also taking issue with a proposed bill backed by Senator Jill Carter, which would automatically charge anyone under 18 as a juvenile. They argue some crimes are severe enough to carry adult charges.
How do you tell a victim's family that you can't charge someone as an adult because of their age when they've committed such a horrible act?
Senator Carter says she doesn't think juveniles fully understand their actions because their brains aren't fully developed. She says a prosecutor can ask for cases to be moved to the adult system if necessary. And it is not just prosecutors voicing concern over the state's response to the juvenile crime crisis. Prince George's County Executive Angela Also Brooks is calling for change after a 16-year-old is shot and killed in Fort Washington.
It's an epidemic and a crisis that has to be addressed at every level. I am going to have conversations with the governor. He's reached out as well to bring all of us to the table. There is no excuse for violence, none. I don't care the age of the child who commits the violence. Living in a safe place is a fundamental right of every person in this community.
Now, House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you want to contact them about public safety legislation, their phone numbers, email addresses right there on your screen. Well, coming up, Fox 45 News continues to follow the war in Israel. A look at the latest from today as we learn more about the missing Americans in Israel. And the House GOP throwing their support behind Steve Scalise for House Speaker. What Scalise says his first order of business will be.
And quiet and warm for now, but we are tracking rain that's approaching with the next weather maker. I'm going to let you know when that's going to get here and if it's going to impact your weekend plans. That's coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News is continuing our coverage on the war in Israel. And here is the latest on what has happened so far today as the death toll and damage grows. Top left Israel has formed an emergency government and war management cabinet in the wake of Hamas's surprise attacks. Officials say the government will not pass any laws or make any decisions that do not concern the conduct of the war. Top right, happening overnight, a heavy rocket barrage was launched from the Gaza Strip by Hamas into the city of Ashkelon. Those rockets causing severe damage with homes and streets left destroyed. It's unclear how many people were injured in that attack. Bottom left, the death toll is rising in Israel and the Gaza Strip, with the American death toll rising to 22 and Israeli fatalities surpassing 1,200. The White House saying today that 17 Americans who remain missing in Israel have potentially been taken hostage in Gaza. And bottom right, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken left for Israel today, where he is set to meet with senior Israeli officials, including the Prime Minister, to discuss further boosting military support. And as the war wages on and rages on, Fox 45's Patrice Sanders spoke with an Air Force Brigadier General about what we can expect to see in terms of American involvement.
We are 5 days into the war between Israel and Hamas, and fighting continues. The U.S. says it stands firmly with Israel and will provide support. Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert is currently running for U.S. Senate, but we spoke with him as a military expert about the strategy we could see play out and what we can expect in the days ahead.
Yeah, let me start with the United States. And we need to, first of all, make sure that we're protecting and supporting American citizens in Israel and the region. Then we need to support Israel, especially with intelligence, but to some extent supplies and logistics. We need to ultimately posture our military to deter other actors in the region that would do things that would take advantage of the situation. And ultimately, I think, Patrice, we need to resolve the dysfunction in Washington that is hindering our ability to support Israel and to project power around the world.
When we talk about the U.S. involvement, they are sending folks over to try to help with the hostage negotiations and to get those folks out of there and back home. How does that work?
No, and so just think about the brutality of using women, children, the elderly as human shields, and now as kidnapped victims. And of course, we've got expertise in that area in our special operations forces, and we are working alongside of our Israeli partners to make sure that they understand the nuances of how to undertake such a challenging and difficult mission.
Well, as for how long this war could go on, he says it depends on the objective of Israel. If they want to eradicate Hamas, that would take years. But to limit their ability to do something like this in the future would take a shorter amount of time. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Louisiana Representative Steve Scalise has won the House GOP's nomination for Speaker. The final tally from the secret ballot vote was 113 for Scalise and 99 for Jim Jordan. For Scalise to formally become Speaker, he will need 217 votes, a majority of the entire chamber. Scalise spoke with reporters following his nomination, saying he already has planned what his first resolution will be as Speaker.
And our first resolution that we pass under Speaker Steve Scalise will be to make it clear that we stand with Israel. The McCall-Meeks resolution will be our first order of business.
Representative Jim Jordan has said he will be voting for Scalise on the floor. House Democrats are expected to back Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker.
All right, look at the Fox Triple Cast this evening, and you see a few clouds here and there after a mainly sunny day on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Sky Cam at the top of your screen, and also the Mile 1 Towson Cam. HD radar showing the approach of our next weather maker, Chicago, all the way down to south of Knoxville. And actually, that's spewing some of the clouds eastbound. We'll have a couple of clouds in our skies over the next couple of days until that finally reaches us by the weekend. So it's beautiful for now with a continued warm week's end. And then a big weekend cool down with the approach and arrival of our weekend weather maker, which is going to wet us down as well. 65 right now as we take a beautiful look on the Mile 1. Actually, this is not our Mile 1 Towson cam. This is our traffic camera out in Towson. You can see in the background here the traffic. It's looking like it's moving by fairly smoothly on this late rush hour. 65 with the wind out of the west at 5, making for humidity nice and low at 43%. Dew points in the low 40s, so a crisp feel as the sun begins to set. Hit highs in the low 70s today. We've dropped off a few degrees now into the low and mid 60s area wide. HD radar again showing the approach of the next weather maker. Big rain down around New Orleans, Louisiana, all towards the panhandle of Florida. Then there's some rain that's west and actually right around now Chicago. And that is going to be part and parcel of our next system that moves toward us. Notice this one batch of rain that's over the southeast today in the Gulf South. That's moving off into the Atlantic, but there's still some leftover moisture behind, and that's going to become our next system that consolidates over us on Saturday. Until then, though, look at those warm temperatures out to our west in the mid to upper 70s even at this hour. Looks like that's going to move east for tomorrow, so maybe even a little warmer than today. Now, out in the tropics, there's still a little bit of activity. Sean, which is a tropical storm, that's going to become a tropical depression next few days. And then there's also a at least low chance of development that's out in the eastern Atlantic. And as that moves west, there could be some gradual development there. So that is something that we will watch very closely. Now, overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, some 40s to near 50 as you're waking up. So jackets for you and the kids getting to school and getting to work. But in the afternoon, same old story. Take them off and back to short sleeves as highs hit the 70s. 45, partly cloudy and crisp again tonight. 75 and partial sun. Nice day for tomorrow. Your exclusive 10-day forecast tracking rain coming our way and how long it lasts in a couple of minutes.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
That is the sound of an elk bugling as he wades through water in western North Carolina. Elk make this sound in the fall during rutting season as he advertises his fitness for a female called a cow. He's also showing off to the other bulls. The activity is most common at dusk and dawn.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
Well, coming up, a record number of guns being found at airport security checkpoints nationwide. A look at the alarming trend, and the TSA speaks out. The TSA is on track to stop a record number of guns from getting through security at airports nationwide. Here in Maryland at BWI Airport, which had a security concern today, 36 guns have been caught at security checkpoints just this year. As Steve McCarran from our Sinclair sister station in Seattle explains, TSA is calling the trend careless.
Photos released by the TSA show 3 of the 5 guns that were all stopped by officers during routine screenings of carry-on bags at SeaTac security checkpoints over a 4-day period just last week, all of them loaded.
It really is carelessness, is it not?
It is. At the root of it, it's carelessness.
The TSA's Lori Dankers says the guns are part of an alarming trend. 95 already discovered at SeaTac just this year. That's 3 more than at this point in 2022. And nationwide, the number is much bigger, nearly 5,100, fast approaching the record of more than 6,500 during all of last year. Dankers says the pandemic no longer an excuse for the behavior, with passenger rates returning to pre-pandemic levels.
That rate is concerning for us because what it means is people are just ignoring the rules. They're not taking into account what the consequences are.
Travelers caught breaking the gun rules can face stiff fines, anywhere from $3,000 to $10,700 for trying to bring one through a checkpoint, or even higher for repeat offenders. Investigators taking into account whether the gun was loaded, if the passenger is a repeat offender, and how the gun was discovered when determining how much that passenger will be forced to pay.
I'm hopeful that people will hear this, will think about it, will talk to people in their family or their friends who have a firearm. Hey, I heard that they're getting more of these at the airport. Don't do that. Don't be that person.
In addition to the 5 real guns, 2 replicas were discovered at SeaTac last week, too. But Dankers warns those can't travel in carry-on bags either.
Exclusive 10-day forecast.